In Wellington this week, the New Zealand Society for Earthquake Engineering is holding its annual technical conference. So far, so pro forma really. But after the Kaikoura earthquake, roughly 100 foreign experts are also taking part in the conference. And the New Zealand conference is being held jointly with a world conference on seismic isolation. The reasons why are obvious really. Kaikoura saw a significant seabed rise, major land damage outside a city, major damage to road and rail infrastructure, communities cut off, as well as building damage in the capital city, Wellington. So as a case study, it operates across a very broad spectrum and very much under discussion why some buildings do better than others. Building resilience. Dr. David Whittaker is the conference convener. He says last November's quake has proven a major drawcard for the conference.
The Kaikoura earthquake, I think, was a story of astonishing ground movement that the geologists tell us about in the northern South Island along the Kaikoura coast. And also surprising levels of ground shaking that happened in Wellington City, particularly on the waterfront. So it's really around disruptions to infrastructure on the Kaikoura coast and disruptions to buildings in Wellington.
Yes, and one of the interesting aspects of the conference is the discussion of the resilience of building construction. Now, we've talked about this with Nick Smith on this program in the context of what happened to some buildings in Wellington, and I asked him, would we be able to build earthquake-proof buildings at some stage, and he said, well, I don't think it'll be in our lifetime. What is your sense of where we are at with a meaningful resilience to earthquakes?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The term earthquake-proof is a term that earthquake engineers don't like to use. We don't claim to be able to design buildings to be earthquake-proof that won't be damaged or disrupted by earthquakes. But it's a conversation we need to have because eventually I think the community is expecting us to be able to design more earthquake-proof buildings than what we've been doing. While we've done a pretty good job about providing safety, life safety in buildings, we haven't yet really come to grips with how to design buildings to be less disrupted and to have less damage and have to be vacated and repaired. So as part of this conference, some of the topics and some of the experts from around the world are going to address this question of where are we on the journey to possibly being able to do earthquake-proof buildings, the holy grail, if you like. And I think there are some people that are comfortable using that term and would say that we already have the technologies for doing providing earthquake-proof buildings.
Is that a design thing or a materials thing?
Well, it's both. The materials have to be strong enough and resilient enough to perform under very severe shaking. But the technologies that are there, like base isolation, and we have many examples in New Zealand and in Wellington, are leading the way to where building design has to go. We're now talking the language of low damage design. So in Wellington, the Wellington fault event, when it happens, is expected to be of magnitude 7.5, or slightly bigger. And it comes along around every, I think the latest estimate's around every 900 years, so not very often. But when it happens, our job is to make sure that people survive in those buildings. And we treat the damage as a secondary thing, but I think people are expecting better avoidance of damage in our designs. And that will have to be reflected in the code. And it's a difficult balancing act about how much you mandate to the community in codes of practice and how much you leave to owners to decide for themselves, with market forces driving where you design more resilient, stronger, and more forgiving buildings.
Dr. David Whittaker, who's the conference convener. It's taking place in Wellington tomorrow and Friday, I think.